Probate wholesaling. Don't let a wholesaler investor take all your family's equity. Let's talk about that. As a real estate agent who specializes in probate, I see this happen to people all the time. The minute that they petition the probate court is the minute it becomes public record. And when it becomes public record, people can go down to the courthouse and find these records. Websites will start grabbing onto these records, and there are some companies who will take the records and sell them out as leads. So you'll start getting investors. And a few real estate agents too. I mean, I send out letters to people to help, not to be a predator. But they'll send out letters saying, hey, when are you going to sell the house? And they'll make a phone call and say, hey, like, I'm really interested in buying your house on 123 Main Street. When are you going to sell it? And you may be overwhelmed by the entire process to begin with. And then you have a house full of personal items, your loved one's treasures, to try to figure out how to disperse. And they may even tell you, oh, don't worry, we'll take care of that for you. You take what you want, and we'll take care of the rest. And they will, for a lower price than what the house is of value. So let's break down exactly what a wholesaler is, and then I'll tell you a story about where I ran into this. So what a wholesaler is an unlicensed investor. They are not regulated by the state. They don't have to sit through licensing law to get their license or take continuing education to maintain it because they don't have a license. They're not a real estate agent. They are truly an investor buyer, but they'll come in to people who might be a little overwhelmed and might have made a bad decision of getting in a deal with them before they realize it. Because they'll sign a lengthy contract and they will say they'll give you a certain amount of money. And you don't have to worry about the rest. You don't have to worry about repairs. You don't have to worry about getting rid of the rest of the treasures out of the house. Here's what they're going to give you for the house. But there's a catch. They are going to assign a buyer. They're going to find a different buyer to actually buy this house. And they can either do it without making repairs because they've gotten such a good deal down here that they can go put it on the open market and find a buyer and have that buyer buy up here. And they get to take that gap in between of all that money. Or they can actually come in and do repairs and fix the thing up, thus causing that gap to go even higher, and hire a real estate agent to help them find a buyer and assign it. Either way, you're getting this down here for the value of the home. They're getting this up here for the value of the home. And all on the same closing day, because you show up for closing, they show up for closing, the buyer shows up for closing, you get the deal you made with them, they get a big chunk of the equity out of the home because they sold the house and assigned it to a buyer at a higher price. And you may be sitting there going, well, wait, how did that happen? How did you make that much money off the top of this house? And you actually could have gotten into this situation where they're walking away with some of the equity that was yours for the convenience of not having to try to get rid of the treasures or make repairs. And I will say there's a big old myth out there that people think you can't sell a house as is, and you absolutely can. And there are other means that if you don't have the time, energy, or space to try to disperse of the treasures, there's other ways of accomplishing that goal without eating into a big chunk of the equity. Now let me tell you how I found this out in real time. I got introduced to an executor who had a home in Jonesboro. Now, this house had good bones. The person who passed away took care of the home in the sense that everything on the outside was painted up really nice, had a decent roof on it. The only thing going on the inside was it was outdated, had some Formica countertops, had some original cabinetry, but the cabinetry was in good condition. So it was just outdated, and it probably needed new carpet, new paint, and it had a lovely pool that had been, like the pump had been upgraded like a year ago. But because they weren't running the pool, it kind of looked a little messy. And so that's the 3 things I suggested to them. Change out the carpet, do paint in this house, and fix up the pool. Then they could go out and they could get a whole bunch of eyeballs on this house and maybe get somebody who's actually a homeowner who wants to move into it. Now, if they didn't have the money to do the carpet, do the paint, do the pool, that's fine. You price based according on condition You tell people you're not fixing things up, that this is the way it is, and they can take it or leave it, and you find the right buyer who's okay with buying a home with these things needing to be fixed up that they can take care of after they close. Your buyer pool is going to shrink a bit because there's going to be some buyers who can't, they're already putting their down payment down and everything, and they may not have money to fix these things up. That doesn't mean that there isn't a buyer out there for them. This particular house, it's just your buyer pool has shrunk. I never recommend something to somebody if it's something that I feel like it's more than they can handle, or if they don't want to take the extra time to do the repairs. So they had this gentleman come in, and this could be a safety concern too, meeting an investor that you don't know, unlicensed person coming into your door, you're showing a house. Like, there could be some safety factors there. At least with real estate agents, we have to have a background check done in order to receive our license. They let this gentleman in, and he went around and he was going to offer them $150,000 for this house. And they could get the rest of what they wanted out of the house and leave the rest because he was going to take care of it. And the way the contract read was that neither one of them were going to get representation from a real estate agent to go under contract together. Once they were under contract, this person had permission to make repairs, and they also had permission to hire their own real estate agent to market this house. And the seller, the way it was written, didn't have a say in who they hired. And then once they found a buyer, they were going to assign it, and then everything's going to be great. So when I read the contract to this lady, I said, this is not in your favor. And I was like, let me go back and look up the numbers of, if you choose not to fix this place up, how much you can get for it, taking it on the open market, versus if you do the things I say as far as needing some repairs to get more eyeballs on it, what you can get for the house. So he was offering her $150,000. I felt like I could sell it for around $195,000, $198,000, no fixing up. Like, that's just what I felt like I could sell. I found another house down the road that was in similar condition that sold around that price. So that gives me a good indicator that we could price around that and get the same. Then I went out and found a house not updated because we didn't do countertops and we didn't do, new flooring or anything like that other than the carpet and the paint and fixing up the pool. We wound up selling it for $235,000. So I don't know about you, but there is a big gap between $150,000 and $235,000. There's also a big gap between $150,000 and $195,000 that, for convenience, they were going to take the easy route and lose a big old chunk of money. And I just don't think they knew, because it's really hard for people to understand the equity in a house. So, what you owe on it mortgage-wise versus what you can sell for. That amount of money is equity that could be cash in your bank account. Also, as an administrator or an executor, you take an oath with the court saying you're going to do your fiduciary duties towards this estate. And part of your fiduciary duties is trying to get the most you can out of the house and not taking the easy way. Now, sometimes desperate times means desperate measures. It means you don't have time. You don't have the personal money to upkeep the house. The house is getting ready to get into foreclosure, and you're better off selling this thing as fast as possible to get whatever equity you possibly can out of it. But before you go scurrying down rabbit holes and making a decision without thoroughly understanding all your options, you can make a big mistake, is what I'm saying. So you have plenty of options. There are companies out there that can lend you money if you can prove that you are going to be one to inherit, or you're the executor, so the estate can pay you back once the house closes. You could sell it to an investor. You absolutely could. But I would at least caution you to have a real estate agent, particularly one who understands probate, guide you through that. Me personally, I have various sources where I can pull investors in, and you may not be able to get as much money for the house as you would if you took it on the open market, but at least you're able to get it done quickly and without them 100% taking advantage of you, because You could have an investor, it comes outright and buys the property and give you a decent price and close quickly and not tie you up in a lengthy contract until they can find a buyer. Because if you're trying to hurry this process along and be done with it, the last thing you want to do is get entangled in a long drawn out contract because they can't find the buyer to assign, and then they themselves can't buy it, right? They've got some money to fix it up, but they don't have enough money to buy it outright or enough credit to buy it outright. They desperately need that buyer to be reassigned. So there are opportunities out like that if you have issues, at least have a real estate agent guiding you through the process. You can get an attorney to pause foreclosure temporarily so that you can sort things out. So there are other ways that when desperate times come to different desperate measures, you don't have to hit the wrong easy button and then be like, oops, maybe that was a mistake. So if you find yourself in this situation, feel free to reach out. I can help point you in the right direction. If you need help with a good real estate attorney, I can help out with that. If you need help kind of navigating with investors or trying to get something sold quicker than you could if you took it to the open market, I can certainly help out with that as well. I just hate to see anybody being taken advantage of. Also, link below, we do have a free resource, the 7 mistakes not to make in probate. So you can click on that and have that free resource to thumb through that ebook so that you can make sure you're making the right decision for your circumstances on behalf of the estate. If you found this information helpful, then stick around. We talk all about probate and how to avoid it and some estate planning as well. And as always, have a wonderful day. Bye.